green. Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go!
And a good morning to you, Birds fans. It is officially not 2 and 2, just 2 weeks until Eagle training camp opens up, and we're here to help get you ready for it. We'll be here every single day up until 2 Tuesdays from now, when, yes, the Birds will officially report for the 2022 season. That's what we're talking about here on Birds 365 on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. All right, I'll get it out of the way. Hit that like button. Since you're already on, we'll build up a number of you over. But since you're one of the early lights hopping in right at the start of the show, do the right thing. Be heard. Hit that like button for McMullen and McDonald. Johnny Mack, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, Jody. How are you? How's Mrs. Mack? That's
Mack,
more important.
Getting better, still in the contagious state, so still keeping my distance from my better half. But hopefully today, tomorrow, sometime soon, she'll come out of that contagious state. But she's feeling well. Thank you for asking. All right. One of the things I've been doing while banished to my basement has been reading a lot of John McMullen over these past 24 hours on several different outlets. You keep busy, buddy. I got to give you props. First things first, at JAKIB Sports. Last week, over the weekend, you hit all the key offensive skill positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, your latest missive. And we all know Dallas Goedert is numero uno. And the question is, can he be a Pro Bowl, all-pro first team? Going to be difficult when you've got a Kelsey and a Kittle in the league. Cracking that kind of duo is going to be difficult. But he can absolutely make the Pro Bowl this year. It's his and his alone. Last year, he shared time, of course, with Zach Ertz at the beginning of the season after Ertz was traded. It certainly became Goedert's position. And, oh, by the way, he was rewarded with a nice contract extension. So he's here to stay for a while with the Philadelphia Eagles. How big is big? How big a season can Dallas Goedert have?
Well, I've already gone on record that if you ask me, and we're doing it at Sports Illustrated, the best football players on the Eagles, to me, my answer right away is Dallas Goedert, the best pure football player right now for the Philadelphia Eagles. Not about what you've done in the past. Obviously, Jason Kelsey's more accomplished. Lane Johnson, veteran players like that, Fletcher Cox. Jordan Davis has tremendous potential. You're a big Nakobe Dean guy. I'm not talking about potential. I'm talking about a combination of both. He's one of the best players in football at his position. You mentioned I would throw in Mark Andrews. Those are the only 3 peers he has in my eyes. And, people talk about Kyle Pitts and Mike Gesicki. They're receivers, man. They don't block. This is an old school tight end. And there are certain guys, Travis Kelce, number one, by far, as one of the best, pass receiving tight ends of all time already. He's so good, you kind of overlook the other aspect of it. But the other guys, Kittle and Andrews, they're both very old school as well, and the fact that they can do both. There aren't a lot of those guys. There are not. They're becoming an endangered species, and Dallas Goedert is one of them. He's really good at both. He's so good at blocking to the point I often think about, man, he's too good because you waste him in line, and you'd probably rather have him outside as a receiver. But you don't have anybody else to replace what he gives you as a blocker in line. He's just really, really good. So I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to be an all-pro because, as you mentioned, it's going to be really difficult to get past those three names. And, well, you gave me two, and I added Mark Andrews. But, I mean, there's one all-pro. There's one tight end, and that's why it's so difficult. He's really, really good, and he's one of the best football players on this team. And if you want to argue he's not the best, he's certainly at worst. I mean, anybody who doesn't have him in the top five isn't paying attention.
I agree wholeheartedly with that. All right, let me annoy Eagle fans to start the show today. It is never my want, but sometimes that's the way that the cookie crumbles. Speaking of crumbling, week one, Dallas Goedert, torn MCL.
Oh,
gone for the season.
Yeah, that's bad news. That is bad news.
And the Eagles, there's certainly a drop-off after Dallas Goedert, but it comes in quality, not quantity. They got a whole bunch of tight ends on this roster, John. Everybody's going to get their puncher's chance if Dallas Goedert goes down. They're not lacking for options. The question is, how would you rank, how would you rate all of the options? And there are plenty that are on this roster, more so than most. I know it's a 90-man roster, but it seems to me like they got more tight ends than most teams in the National Football League under contract right now. How do you line up the other tight ends behind Dallas Goedert?
Well, Tyree Jackson's not going to be ready for the start of training camp, and Jimmy Kempski got so we knew that was going to happen. He tore his ACL in week 18, so that's a 9-month injury. Do the math. He's not going to be ready on July 26th. That game was on, I believe, January 8th. So he's going to start on the PUP list. And hat tip to Jimmy Kempski for that, our buddy. You mentioned there's a drop off. I would argue, it's like walking off, the Grand Canyon. That's the drop off from Dallas Goedert to Jack Stoll, who would, in theory, be the number 2 tight end. It was last year when the Eagles traded Zach Ertz right before the trade deadline. And he could block a little bit, and he's okay. He's certainly not going to scare anybody throwing the football. So in the passing game. So that, that harms you in this way, Jody. You kind of tip off, and you never like to do that as an offense when you have certain personnel packages. Well, if Jack Stoll's in the game, they're going to run the football. You never want to let other people know that. So you hope to have more of a balanced, and that's where Grant Calcaterra comes in. And everybody talks about Grant like he's a second-round pick, and I don't know, around the Eagles. And it's like, okay, he was a good prospect at one point at Oklahoma, and he was on a trajectory to be maybe a day 2 pick, maybe a third-rounder. And he had a series of concussions and walked away from the game. I mean, you can't go into a season counting on a 6th-round pick. And I know we have this discussion about pedigree, and yes, it should be a meritocracy. And if he deserves it, he should be out there. No argument with that whatsoever. But to count on somebody as a 6th-round pick, and you're saying, well, you liked him so much, you kept passing on him. Now, granted, you traded all your picks, but you still had the ability to get him earlier if you wanted him earlier. So it's not like you're head over heels with Grant Calcaterra, and they act like, oh, well, we'll stick in Grant Calcaterra. It wouldn't surprise me, Jody, if the tight end 2 isn't even on this roster right now. This is a position where they might look outside the organization if things go poorly in training camp. And I'm talking labor wire. I'm talking trade.
Timeout, Philadelphia. Are you telling me Rich Rod is not a competent replacement tight end? You tell me
No.
that J.J. Arcega-Whiteside conversion to the
That's what
tight
I'm
end
telling you.
position isn't going to get it done? Are you telling me
Well,
that
actually,
no,
you
it's
know,
the guy who they got crazy about having picked off their roster a couple of years ago and then re-signing him, getting him back here is not the answer? Are you telling me Jack Stoll's they have 6 tight ends in reserve already? Not one of them is good enough to be the TE2?
No, one of them might be, and they'll get the opportunity. But I'm saying there's just as good of a chance that they prove that they're not good enough to be the tight end too, and they'll start looking outside the building. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying it wouldn't surprise me. They'll get an opportunity, and I think the Tyree Jackson injury is a difficult one from that perspective. I think they would have liked him to take that leap, and maybe he doesn't take that leap if he's healthy. Maybe, I mean, he's a raw developmental prospect. Maybe he doesn't take that leap either. They got a lot of uncertainty. The one guy who who can play, you can stick him out there and he's going to be credible, as you mentioned, is Rich Rod. Richard Rodgers always, when they got him, but they never want to put him out there.
No,
they don't. It's their last. He's not athletic. He can't run. He's an average blocker, but guess what? Average at everything is their second best tight end right now.
And it seems to me when they throw him the football, he catches it.
Oh,
he gets enough separation. He gets open. He catches balls. I was surprised that they even re-signed him. When they had as many tight ends as they did on the roster, I said, well, they're not going to bring Rich Rod back, and they did. And at times we talk about the concept, they have already got their whole 90-man roster. Yet 90-man roster with 8 tight ends. But John's telling me that none of them are good enough to be their tight end too. They might have to go outside.
I didn't say that. I get in trouble when people twist my words yet. I got in trouble yesterday.
Please state again.
I said they will get, they're penciling in Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra. All right. I'm just saying, if you want to be real with yourself, I'm not comfortable going into a season where my backup tight end, and if Dallas Goedert has a torn MCL, as you mentioned, I'll get you in trouble. And you're going to go to Jack Stoll and say, hey, go play 80% of the snaps. That's going to be ugly, my friend. And Grant Calcaterra, I don't know what Grant Calcaterra is. I don't know what. I mean, if he gets banged up, if he gets a concussion, is he going to be shut down for the season? I don't know. I'm saying that when you look at the depth of this team, tight end might be the worst position. And they might be the best at the starter and the worst in depth.
Fair enough. My only point is that for a team to divorce themselves from a tight end, one of the other 31 teams in the National Football League has to be at least their 3rd best tight end. They're going to keep their 2 best tight ends. Of all those tight ends that are going to hit the open market, you think the Eagles have no guys on their roster that are better than the guy who's going to get cut by Denver?
I'm not saying
Cowboys.
they won't. I'm not saying they won't get an opportunity. They'll get an opportunity to prove themselves. But I'm saying they'll be open. Look, the Jets signed 2 tight ends. Your team, I forget. You might remember. I know they signed Conklin. They signed another one. They drafted one. I'll tell you right off the bat, they got a better 3rd tight end. That's the first team I thought of, because I said, wow, they signed a couple decent guys and then they drafted another tight end. There's a lot of teams who have a number of good tight ends. And, if you can spin off a 6th, 7th round pick late in the process and get an upgrade. Yeah, I mean, this team thinks it's good and you want depth. And that's it. Hey, Grant Calcaterra might show up and prove he's the kid at Oklahoma. And they go, we're good. We're good. I'm saying I can't count on that. I think that's a specious way to go about things.
Okay. Yeah. Ty Conklin and Ozama, the Cincinnati tight end.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And then they drafted somebody on top of it. I think.
Ruckert, a kid in the 3rd round. So yeah, you're right. The Jets may actually have to cut a tight end that would be better than the Eagles have. All right, and the other John McMullen missive I did read was your piece on Nakobe Dean. Man, you're not giving this kid a chance to play this year, are you?
I think no. I think he could play in the second half of the season, and I'll know better on July 27th if he's healthy. But that's number one. That's the first hurdle I got to get over. Is he healthy? Is the pec? The pec is a short-term injury. I never got why teams were scared off by the pec, because worst case scenario, we're talking, 6-8 weeks. All right. Okay, that's fine. Maybe second half of the season. So that's first hurdle. The bigger hurdle is, I think the assumption is that there's no ramp up period for good college players, and there's a ramp up player, and the ones who tend to hit the ground running are just the freak athletes and the Micah Parsons of the world going back to last season. But, if you watch the film, you'll see a boatload of mistakes from Micah Parsons. He's just so much more talented than everybody else. He overcomes it. I went through the same thing. I talk about it all the time, covering Randy Moss. He couldn't run in three patterns. I mean, he had plenty to learn, but he was so much better than everybody else. Didn't matter. He had 15 touchdowns. Jamar Chase a little bit the same way last year, in that, we heard about the drops. Remember last August, the drops in Jamar Chase, and how much he's struggling. Guess what? He dropped the football. He struggled, but he's so much better than everybody else. Didn't matter. Javon Curse, another one back in the day. It's ironic because what are the nicknames of Javon Curse and Randy Moss? Freak, both of them. Freak, 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 freak. All four of them. All four of those players I just mentioned. Those are the players that make immediate splashes. Everybody else, and I use the example, ESPN just did their top 10 list, or they evaluated league executives and scouts and came up with the top 10 list, and the all-ball linebackers. So there's 10 linebackers. 5 were in the first round. 5 were later round picks. There were 2 third-round picks. One of them, I would argue, is the best linebacker in football. And that, to me, is Fred Warner.
Fred Warner, yeah.
Demario Davis, who you know well as a former Jet, was the other one.
Jets mishandled him.
Yeah, hell of a player, by the way. Getting a little bit older. But then I looked into Fred Warner. Fred Warner didn't hit the ground running. He struggled as a rookie. He turned into a star his third year. Demario Davis turned into a star his fifth year, really. I'm just saying it takes time. People are saying, all right, that's done. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. It's going to take time. So the first hurdle is injury, the pec. Where are we? Because just because the Eagles said what they said, he barely did anything in OTA. Now, everybody barely did anything in OTA.
Right. We're really going to judge the OTA, John?
No, I'm just saying it didn't prove anything. And in other words,
didn't prove anything positively or negatively.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'm saying
I don't know why you referenced it.
Because everyone's saying, well, he was out there, so he's healthy. I'm not so sure of that, is all I'm saying. That I'm talking about the people who are going in the positive direction. It might be positive. He might be ready to go. He might show up day one of camp when they're on the field, be 100% and no issues with the pec, and great. But I'm saying I want to see that first. I want to see that first. If that's an issue, then yeah, second half of the season, no doubt about it.
Let me ask you about another Eagle rookie, Jordan Davis. Some people question his conditioning, that he's a little too big for his own good. What did he do in the workouts that the Eagles had in there?
No, you're missing my point because you're defending Nakobe Dean.
That's exactly what I'm doing, because I think you're misjudging him.
But you're missing my point. That's exactly what you're doing. One, it doesn't have an injury. There are a number of teams.
No, you call him injury. I'm calling a question. There's a question about Nakobe Dean. It's an injury. There's a question about Jordan Davis.
If teams were saying, or if Jordan Davis, by the way, tears his pec or strains his pec, slightly tears his pec, whatever you want to call it, in the weight room next week, I'll tell you There's a question mark. He's not going to be on the field early. I'll tell you that. Right now, Jordan Davis doesn't have that issue. Nakobe Dean might have that issue. Might not. I don't know. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
I don't
here's
know.
The question I'm asking you. Do you have no question whatsoever about Jordan Davis's conditioning, that some people did question him in the draft process leading up to before the Eagles selected him?
No, I've already mentioned he's got conditioning issues. He's not used to playing a lot of reps at Georgia. I don't expect him to play more than 50% of the reps as a rookie. At the most, he needs, like everybody else, and typically with offensive linemen, they got to get stronger. This plays into my theory. Most rookies, the vast majority of rookies need a ramp-up period. Jim Schwartz coined the term. I love it. I use it all the time. Thanks, Jim. Startup costs with rookie players. Startup costs with rookie players. Everybody has them. Some people overcome them because they're so talented, like Micah Parsons, Jamar Chase. Jordan Davis will have them. Nakobe Dean will have them.
Okay. As long as you're putting all the rookies into that startup cost category.
And Grant Calcaterra will have them as well.
And Mr. Juergens probably won't, because I don't really think he's going to play. And you don't have to pay startup costs when you're sitting on the bench. If he has to play, I already had, hypothetically speaking, Dallas Goedert going down. I'm not doing that to Jason Kelsey. All right, Johnny Mac, your Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. Time to add our first guest of the day. We're going down the shore. Mike Gill from the Sports Bash going to hop aboard with us next here on Birds 365.
Go for the poles and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Action News at 11 with Rick Williams. It's the team you trust to bring it all together. The stories that impact your community, a sports roundup for the locals, and the AccuWeather forecast you depend on. Action News at 11 with Rick Williams.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really. Don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left. Fake a mom. Mama, go up, up, up.
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
Go for the poles and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Mac here with Young Birds 365 on the JAKIB YouTube channel. Appreciate you streaming on in. We also appreciate when this guy joins us. He does so every couple of weeks. We reach down and shore and say, we need Mike Gill's take on the Birds. Mr. Gill, how's the summer treating you?
The weather hasn't been all that great, Jody, to be honest with you.
Wow. Complaining about the high life down the shore. Well done, Mike Gill. Come on. We'd all love to be down.
We had a washout on Saturday. Sunday was all right, but we haven't had like a
nice solid.
What do you like? 98 degrees? Are you one of these guys who want to go out and boil?
No, my message would be if you are from the Pennsylvania area, there's no need to come down.
Yes. That is always my message.
Trying to keep those beaches manageable, huh? Gil, okay. I see where you're going.
Yeah, man.
I always talk to people like Mike and Dave Weinberg, guys who've lived down there for a long time. Do you get a little sad when, it's time, it's the summer starts and the crowds come, especially as you get a little bit older?
Yeah, we love September, October, even now November is pretty good. June, July, August, man, it's a madhouse down here. Yeah. You can't do anything.
Hold on. Yeah. Tell me you don't have one of those coin finding machines.
No, but I actually, so for the first time, I've lived here my whole life. Now, my girlfriend's son, he's a lifeguard in Upper Township, which I didn't even know had a beach, which is Strathmere. So we went to the beach in Strathmere the other day, and I witnessed 2 guys of the 5 people on that beach that were using the metal detector.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't think people still use them. They're still
they're living in Strathmere.
Okay. Yeah. might say something about Strathmere.
The guy was down there. He was using that metal detector. I was like, man, I wonder if he found anything.
Gil, besides trying to dodge the crowded beaches down there, we're all getting prepped for the upcoming Eagles season. And John and I usually like to try and get a pulse of what the Eagle fans are thinking. We got all our streamers. We appreciate them jumping on here, giving us their comments. I field calls on my WIP show. You're fielding Eagle calls down on your show, the Sports Bash. The correct amount of optimism, surprisingly not enough optimism, way over the top optimism. How would you categorize, with 2 weeks to go before camp, Eagle fans' opinions on how good this football team's going to be?
It's interesting where we are, which is, I would say, 75% Eagles fans. But we do have a lot of transplants down here because of the casinos. So with that, like most places, you get this infiltration of the Dallas fan. But we also have a lot of New York fans because of all the people who live down here because of the casinos. So I feel like there's a anticipation and the expectations. I actually asked this before, like, most people I think are in that 10-11 win range. And I feel like that's not irrational. I mean, generally the Eagles fans will be irrational at times, you may notice, right? And I don't feel like there is that, well, this is the best team, they're going to win 13 games and they're going to win the Super Bowl. I do feel like it has been very, very rational so far. Now, once they get out on the field and on the 26th, and you start to get training camp updates of Hank Baskett catching a touchdown pass and going to be the next Terrell Owens, that might change some things. But as of right now, it seems that everything is kind of, I think a lot of it is tied to the quarterback. I think everybody loves the roster, but they're not sure about the quarterback. And because of that, the expectations are kind of, well, they won 9 games last year. The team's better, so they could probably win 10 or 11. I think if they really ripped the Band-Aid off and trusted the quarterback, they'd probably be in that irrational stage. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, yeah. If they had a proven, no doubt about it, top 10 quarterback, they would be at what is the highest? DEFCON level, I believe 1 is higher than 5. I always get.
We're going plaid.
Yeah.
Well, Spaceball
they would be. If Justin Herbert was here, for instance, forget about Aaron Rodgers. Oh, they'd be over the moon. They'd be getting the reservations ready for Los Angeles. Where's the Super Bowl? Arizona next year. Yeah, I think it's Glendale.
Where's it? Vegas.
I think it's Glendale. coming up. Double check. I'll double check. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Derek Gunn here on JAKIB Media created a bit of a firestorm with a not a report. He was just talking off the cuff about a bad OTA practice Jalen Hurts had. AJ Brown went online to defend Jalen Hurts. You mentioned the Hank Basket catching passes at training camp. People get so hyped up
Paul
about
Turner.
this.
I could have gone Paul Turner.
Paul Turner, one of the greatest hands I've ever seen. Paul Turner. Why is not Paul Turner on the field? You know all this, Mike. Is Jalen Hurts? Here's the deal. Forget about the floor. We've seen the floor. This is a good player, not a great player, a good player. He made the playoffs. He led the team to the playoffs last season, Pro Bowl alternate. He proved he can play in this league. What is the ceiling in Mike Gill's mind? What is the ceiling for this player?
It's a good question. I mean, is he ever going to be the MVP of the league? I don't know. He could be. I mean, why? Statistics, right? We all look at numbers. Is Lamar Jackson, what's his ceiling? He was the MVP of the league. Is he the best thrower? No. Is he the most accurate passer? No. But he put up a ridiculous amount of yards and led his team to a division championship. I can see Jalen Hurts putting up a ridiculous amount of yards and leading his team to a division championship. Does that mean he's the best quarterback in the league? I'm not sure. I mean, there was a poll by executives and people yesterday, I'm sure you guys talked about. Lamar Jackson didn't even crack the top 10. And it was like, how could that be? This guy was the MVP. He puts up yards and stats. Hurts is going to be one of those guys. I think your buddy Jeff Kerr, he tweeted out something yesterday. There's only one quarterback in the history of the NFL who's got over 4,000 yards passing and 2,000 yards rushing in less than 20 games. It's Jalen Hurts. He's the only one ever. So the ceiling is the beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If you're a stats guy, he could compile a huge amount of stats. Now, is he going to be Aaron Rodgers throwing the ball? No. Patrick Mahomes? No. Is he going to be a guy that you can depend on in the crunch? That's the question. Can he make the big throw? Can he rip it on that third down? Can he put one in there? And I think that all remains to be seen, but I think his ceiling is, I hate to bring this up, but Tim Tebow won a lot of games. If you put him in the right system, he won games. I think if you put Hurts in a system that fits him, his ceiling is I can win a lot of games. I don't know if it's I can win a lot of games because of him, but I can win a lot of games with him doing with the ancillary pieces I give him. He won 9 games with what he had last year. How's that even possible?
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this then before you jump in, Jody. What you just said, he can win a lot of games if you put the right pieces around him. Is that worth 35, 40 million a year?
No, when you
that's
brought
where the Eagles are going to be.
John, when you brought this up to me whenever I was on 6 months ago, I almost fell off the seat that I'm on here thinking about that. Like, wait a second. But this is everything. Dame Lillard's a great player. Is he worth $60 million for one season? Can I curse on this show? Bleep no.
Yeah.
You can't give a guy $60 million. He's great. Dame is amazing. He's never been to a finals. He's not an MVP. You can't pay that man $60 million. I don't care what the go. At some point, you have to make a rational decision and say, Dame, you're great. I can't pay you $60 million. We have to shake hands and that's where I'm at with like these mid-level quarterbacks. It's like, how do I pay this guy 35? Well, that's the going rate. Well, we need to change the going rate. Something has to happen.
Fair enough. And when you use Tim Tebow as a reference point, you're just talking about Tim Tebow, the college player, right? Not the pro player.
He made the playoffs in Denver.
He was in Denver. What did he go? He went like 7-1 on that run with Denver.
Yeah, he won a playoff game. I still don't know how he won a playoff game.
Finished his NFL career at 8-6. And for a first
he won more than he lost.
I believe your quote was won a lot of games. Career wins Tim
that
Tebow
season in Denver.
I'm sorry, that doesn't equate to me. The 8 does not get a lot of NFL wins.
Correct.
If it does for you, that's fine.
I mean, when they tailored that offense for him for that one run, he won. I think he was 7-1 in that run.
Yeah, he had a run. He had a nice run towards the playoffs. I don't know exactly what it is. Great
The
college.
problem is nobody wants to keep using that offense. That's what you can't keep running that offense for him. You ran it gimmick for whoever the quarterback before him was got hurt or stunk. Let's go to Tebow and see if he gives us a little spark. He did, but they created that whole offense for him. They couldn't keep using that offense. You're not going to win in this league like that long term. But my point was, if you create the offense, if you accentuate the positives, Paul Heyman, for the player, Jalen Hurts, he's going to put up a lot of yards. He's going to put up a lot of stats. And he's already shown he can win games with lesser talent. I mean, they won with Quez Watkins and Jalen Reagor as their top two of their top receivers. How do you win 9 games with that?
Quez is
unbelievable.
Quez is Tyler Boyd, evidently. I got Eagles fans all over. They think Quez Watkins. It's always interesting to me how fans latch on to certain players. Quez Watkins seems to be one of them. I'm like, what if the Eagles, the A.J. Brown deal was so important for the Eagles because of the domino effect. Like we're all talking about how this is so weak, the wide receiver position leading into the draft. They got to go receiver again in the first round of the draft. They missed out on Ridley. They missed out on Kirk, Robinson, Woods. They got to go receiver again. All of a sudden they get A.J. Brown and Pro Football Focus, top 5 receiving group. Because all the pieces fit into place. Devontae Smith, kind of a stretch early in his career to be a 1. Now he's a 2. Quez Watkins, no way he's a 2, but now he's a 3. That's okay. And all of a sudden, the pieces fall into place. Jody and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. Tight end, Mike. Depth seems to be an issue at certain places with this team. Now, it's an issue everywhere, but there are some glaring depth issues on this team. When you look at that, it's the off season. You got a hand ring about something. Have you started to wring those hands about the depth of this team a little bit?
I would agree at tight end. I think the offensive line has pretty good depth. Though.
Yeah, defensive line as well. Tremendous depth up front.
Right. Quarterback, I mean, you got probably the best backup you can find in Minshew. The linebacking room, I feel like there's 5 good players at that spot. No. The secondary depth, yes. You don't know anything about who. If somebody got hurt, who are you going to go to? McPherson, the kid they signed from Washington. That's probably a problem. And then the safety spot. I mean, you brought Tart in, so you would hope that he either challenges and wins one of those spots, or he's the third guy. So you have a little bit of depth in that spot. But where are they? Other than tight end, I agree. And corner,
I would say receiver. I would say receiver, tight end. I would say, and depending on Jalen Reagor, where are you going to go with Jalen Reagor? What is Jalen Reagor? But it's tough to find a 5th receiver if you're not going to move forward with Jalen Reagor. As you mentioned, corner. The Eagles talked about Tay Gowan and Kerry Vincent and Mac McCain nonstop. And they told you they were full of you-know-what, because as soon as Bradbury's out there, they go get Bradbury. That tells you they don't believe in the Zach McPherson of the world.
Thankfully.
Jaquiski Tart is brought in, as you mentioned, it's because they don't believe in Kayvon Wallace. Now they're telling us Grant Calcaterra and Jack Stoll at tight end. Come on. That I mentioned that's the worst position depth-wise to me, tight end. But there are some other issues. Just something to keep an eye on.
And you would imagine now Calcaterra is a rookie. Who knows? I mean, he could come in and surprise us all, but he was a late round pick. Stoll's more of a blocking guy. Obviously, Richard Rodgers, it seems like they just kind of have him on. He's their Jordan Howard, right? They just kind of have him on speed dial. So, that would be one spot. The corner spot, obviously. And you're right about safety with Wallace. I think they're kind of – and he's in trouble because he doesn't play special teams. They got a Chaucheray and a guy that plays special teams that probably makes it over him if.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the tight end position in Calcaterra. A lot of people said that if he had not had the injuries that he had, he stepped away from football, transferred, but then flashed the same kind of talent that he had at Oklahoma. If he stays healthy, and I know that's a big if with a guy who retired from football, collegiate football, because he was just afraid he had too many concussions. Could he be? See, that's where I think the Eagles have shown over the years, Howie Roseman shown, that he likes to protect his draft picks. I know it's just a sixth, but a sixth is a sixth is a sixth. And oh, by the way, the Eagles didn't even take all 7 picks this year because they moved up to get their defensive tackle and they traded off draft assets to get their superstar wide receiver. I think Calcaterra is going to be given every chance to be the tight end 2 on this team, especially if the Eagles are motivated to throw the ball more this year. That's all we've heard during the offseason is we're going to throw, we're going to throw, we're going to throw. Well, Grant Calcaterra is a guy who can catch. I think he's going to be the number 2 tight end on this team.
Oh, I agree. And, they want to keep their and we heard so much about, well, if he didn't have the concussions and he hadn't retired, he may have been a guy that was a little bit of a higher draft pick in the 6th round. They always feel like, well, we found this guy and he was a higher pick. We had him higher on our board, but that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if Calcaterra. By the way, Calcaterra was a pretty darn good tight end when I think he was at Oklahoma with
Oklahoma, yeah.
Right, and he was. So they have a repertoire already and rapport there. So I wouldn't be surprised if he actually started the season. And again, as we said, you got Rodgers. I'm sure he's going to be still sitting out there. So it's always nice to be able to have that safety blanket to make, hey, let's give this guy the shot to do it. So I would agree, Jody, that I think, and he's an intriguing prospect. He's one of them guys. How many times in this league do you find a tight end that no one's heard of really or followed their college career? They come into the league. This league's filled with guys like that you just never heard of. They're really athletic, and that projects much better at this level than it does in the college game. And they come in and their athleticism just absolutely shines at the NFL level more so at that position than it does in the college game. This league is filled with guys that most people didn't pay a lot of. How many people were watching George Kittle play in college and Darren Waller?
Nobody knew.
Right?
I remember when I told Eagles fans that George Kittle was better than Zach Ertz when Zach was still really good. I took a lot of heat, Mike Gill.
And by the way,
nobody apologized, by the way.
How many people followed Dallas Goedert or Zach Ertz in college? I mean, Zach Ertz was
Zach was the high-profile guy.
He was a second-round pick, but I'm sure a lot of people didn't look at him every week on Saturday and be like, wow, this guy's going to be a big-time pro. I mean, it's just a position in college. It's hard to project, when you're watching them because the numbers for tight ends are just not that. They don't jump off the page at the college game.
Yeah. Milestones. I want to talk about milestones because the Eagles have had a really difficult time in recent seasons. Can't get 1,000-yard rusher, can't get 1,000-yard wide receiver. Zach did it at tight end a couple years ago. But no receiver since Jeremy Maclin. No edge rushers. Double-digit sacks. You got to go back to Connor Barwin in 2014. Wow. Do they get 1,000-yard rusher? A lot of this is just health. 1,000-yard rusher, 1,000-yard receiver, 10-sack guy.
No on the rusher, yes on the receiver, yes on the sack guy. I actually think I wouldn't be surprised if Sweat was the one that got it.
Yeah, could be. Could be Josh. Josh is in. They have 2 options, Hassan Reddick or Josh Sweat.
Yeah,
I'll take Reddick.
Yeah, well, I just feel like Reddick might get more attention. This is one of those things where I don't know what kind of alignment they're going to have on the defensive front. They're going to do a 3-man, 4-man. You're going to see some 5-man fronts. And if that's the case, if Jordan Davis is getting half the snaps and he's taking up 2, does that mean you get one-on-ones on the outside? That kind of stuff. Are you going to play? I think I don't know, John. Do you get a sense that they're going to play more 3-man fronts?
I get a sense they're going to play more odd man fronts. So I think it's going to look to the average fan as 5. But they're going to have the JG calls them overhang players, and that's going to be Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat. They're going to have 3 interior linemen. So it depends how you look at it. Technically, that's a 3-4. But it'll look like a 5-man front. But I think they're going to be really multiple. I really do. You're going to see
I think
you're going to.
One of the things that I'm waiting for is to see what the defensive line alignment is going to look like, and how that, does he have packages where he runs out a traditional 4-man? Hey, Fletcher and Javon, you two are 4-man. Let's get out there. Hey, we're going to go 5. Jordan, get out there between those two. Hey, we're going to go 3. You guys come off the field. Jordan, you go to the nose.
They're going to play, and I'm pretty confident, and I've said this, and if they show up week 1 and I'm wrong, I'll show up week 1 and say I'm wrong. They're gonna play Vic Fangio's defense. That's what they're gonna try to play. So for fans out there, if they want to get on Game Pass, watch some old Broncos, some old Chicago Bears, look at Brandon Staley with the Chargers. That's the defense they're gonna run. So think Khalil Mack. That's the type of player they want. Hassan Reddick to be. Robert Quinn. Somebody like that. Why think about who the Chargers acquired? Khalil Mack. There's a reason for that, because that's the defense they're running. The Eagles are going to try to run, and about, by the way, 40% of the league is trying to run Vic Fangio's defense. So it makes you wonder why people don't just go hire Vic Fangio, but maybe he just wants to take the year off.
Exactly. All right. You did mention a name there, Mr. Gill. You called Rich Rod the Jordan Howard of tight ends, which I like. Jordan Howard, still not an Eagle, still not on anything, because he's not on anybody's roster. Is he just hanging at home doing burpees and getting ready for the season, waiting for his phone to ring? Do you think we'll see Jordan Howard once again coming back to the Eagles at some point this year?
Wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I don't think any other team's going to – he didn't get picked up last year when he was free. The Eagles brought him in. They put him on the practice squad, kept bringing him back and forth until they had to make a decision on him. For whatever reason, that's a position where it's almost feels like you have a comfort level with certain guys that have been in your system or in your region, and you just kind of keep going back to them, So I wouldn't be surprised at all if Howard, how much time is he going to cut into Miles Sanders, or, the theory that Sanders is on a contract, just, pedal to the metal with him because we don't have any intention of signing him back. The old DeMarco Murray thing. Just give him as many carries as you can and let the next team pay him. That could be a way to go. Or do they like Gainwell enough to where – we talked about this yesterday on our Football at 4, which was if Sanders, for whatever reason, gets out and struggles or just doesn't – a couple bonehead plays he had last year running out of bounds or doesn't hit the hole – do they start to infiltrate Gainwell more and, just say, hey, him and – because I'm a big fan of Boston Scott. I don't know why. Every time he gets an opportunity to play, he produces. And admittedly, it's against the Giants, it seems like every single time. But he always produces. He's just a tough guy to tackle and find. I mean, he always seems to, hey, when you're our guy this week, and he'll put up numbers. So you have those 3. I wouldn't think they would call Howard unless something happened to one of those guys.
Yeah, and he's always going to be there because, as Jody mentioned, nobody else wants Jordan Howard. I think, Mike Gill, Jody McDonald, John McMullen, we could probably get 4 yards per carry behind this offensive line. That's part of the success. I'm exaggerating, obviously, but last one for me, Mike, at Mike Gill Show on Twitter. Listen to him down the shore. Drive time 2 to 6, 97.3 ESPN, South Jersey. Jalen Reagor, Andre Dillard. We're 2 weeks away, so they're both going to be here for the start of camp. That's pretty evident. Are they both going to be here at the end of camp?
I think Dillard will be. I mean, unless there's an injury and someone he has to call them. I think they like Dillard, and I wouldn't be surprised. How many more years is Lane Johnson going to be around?
It's a good point. Post 30, he's on. We know that the issues he's had off the field, those are a concern, obviously, but on the field, people forget he had, reconstructive ankle surgery, and there's a guy who probably Lane's one of those guys who, when he retires, I guarantee this, 2 years later, he's going to be like 240 pounds. And you're like, what happened. He's a 6'6" guy who used to be a quarterback who bulked up to play offensive line. He's going to come down. So the point I'm trying to make is he puts a lot of stress on a frame that probably shouldn't be that big, and he's already got a bad ankle. So it's worth pointing out that he's not going to be around forever.
Not only that, you just mentioned the ankle. He's missed games in each of the last couple seasons, 2 seasons, with injury. Not that Dillard would play the right side, but I think they're okay playing him at left and moving Jordan to play right. So I think they do like the safety net of Dillard. I don't think Rager's in the same boat. I think if they got an offer and somebody wanted him, and hey, we need a second receiver, a third receiver, we'll give you X, Y, or Z for him, I wouldn't be shocked if he wasn't here. But I think they legitimately like the embarrassment of riches of having Dillard around, unless they got their socks knocked off. I don't know. What would their socks? What would be the threshold? A second, a third?
I would think they'd hold out for a day 2 pick, a 3rd round pick, but you are going to lose them. I mean, you're going to lose them. So, at some point.
We all have memories of Dillard playing right tackle that night and just getting whipped, and then admitting that he didn't want to play right tackle, which, he needs to have a Alec Bohm moment where he says, hey, I messed up. I shouldn't have said that. I love playing wherever you want me to play. But we all know he can't play right tackle. But our memory of him is that one game. Whereas when he's played left tackle, he has been a solid contributor. Is he a Pro Bowler? Probably not. But if he played full-time left tackle, I don't think we would be our memory would be of what he did at right tackle that one game.
All right, let me put it to both of you. Last question, Mike, you first. The Eagles have the option. Lane Johnson turns the ankle, whatever, he's going out. Is the Eagle offensive line going to be Mailata at left tackle and Driscoll at right tackle, or are they going to do what they did last year and move Mailata over to the right side and plug Dillard in?
I think they would move Mailata to the right side and put Dillard at left tackle.
John?
I think short term they just put Driscoll in. Long term, if it were a multi-week injury, they would move Mailata and put Dillard at left tackle.
I disagree. I think Driscoll 1 week.
Well, what's to say Driscoll's not playing right guard?
Be their right tackle.
What's to say Driscoll's not playing right guard?
Yeah, we've talked about this.
I'm sorry. I should have qualified that. Right. Thank you, Mike. Isaac Seumalo, if he's healthy, I think is their right guard. I don't think there's any question about that. If Seumalo is at right guard, then yes. If Driscoll's coming off the bench, one of the two have to be plugged into the lineup, Dillard and or Driscoll. I absolutely believe it's Driscoll, not Dillard.
It's great depth, though, because, and I've mentioned this before, that I don't think they're going to cut Isaac either way, because I think they like his versatility. So even if he loses the job to Driscoll, who's to say if Driscoll doesn't get hurt, they move Driscoll to right tackle, they put Seumalo at right guard. They have an embarrassment of riches. They can go
and Dickerson doesn't actually have the cleanest bill of health either.
No,
so if he were to get hurt, Isaac is there to go play left guard, and so you're right. Their backup 5 would be a starting unit somewhere.
Oh yeah, it's just I say it all the time. It's an offensive line deficient league. I said Green Bay fans are the most spoiled fans, I always joke, in the history of mankind, because they don't know how the other half lives when it comes to quarterback. They've had Hall of Fame quarterback play uninterrupted for over a quarter century. Eagles fans don't know how the other half lives when it comes to the offensive line. There are so many teams in this league
here
that cannot block people, and Eagles fans don't realize that.
Here's a quick question for you guys to chew on. Aaron Rodgers is widely regarded as the best, if not one of the best of all time, but the best right now. If he was the quarterback of the Eagles and had only won 1 Super Bowl, would we view him as high as he's viewed? Or would he be a disappointment because he only won 1 Super Bowl here?
I think he'd be a disappointment. I think people in Green Bay think he's a disappointment. I think, been too close to Packers fans for too long. They look at it that way. He's only got 1.
Right.
I think it's national people who say, Aaron's, and I include myself, I say it all the time. I don't think anybody has ever played the position at a higher level than Aaron Rodgers. I don't say he's the greatest of all time because you have to put longevity in that. You have to put Super Bowls, and Tom Brady exists. But when he's at his optimum level, that's how he described it. I don't think anybody has ever played the position at a higher level. I think people in Green Bay get myopic and they say, we only got one. And I think Eagles fans would say the same thing.
I tend to agree. I think not that McNabb is Rodgers, but he was an ultimate failure because he didn't even, and they got the one Super Bowl. So if you had Aaron Rodgers and only won one Super Bowl, you'd be like, this guy only won one Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think that's the way it would be. Jody, your thoughts?
Agreed. Sometimes fans don't give the right amount of credit and or get caught up with a specific position or a specific guy. Howie Roseman. There are people that love Howie and people can't stand Howie, so they kind of get the glasses on and can't give what most of us would believe would be a fair observation. Mike Gill, always a pleasure, my friend. Get out there with your metal detector, since all the short people are coming down and making your life more difficult. At least make a couple bucks off it.
Get out there midweek. You got to stay in on the weekend, man. Too much. It's too much on the weekend.
Yeah, too much, man. As I said, the weather hasn't been good down here, people up there, so it's not worth the drive.
All right. Mike Gill, thank you very much. We'll get you back up in a couple of weeks once camp gets open. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, guys.
That's Mike Gill from the Sports Bash, 97.3, the ESPN down in on the Jersey Shore. All right, Johnny Mac coming back. Mark Farzetta, host of our Eagles post-game show here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, is going to hop aboard with us. I haven't talked to Farzy in forever. Looking forward to doing that. Got a couple more things I want to run by John. Keep it right here on Birds 365.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Action News at 11 with Rick Williams. It's the team you trust to bring it all together. The stories that impact your community. A sports roundup for the locals. And the AccuWeather forecast you depend on. Action News at 11 with Rick Williams.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake 'em out. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Hour number 2 on a Tuesday edition of Verse 365. McMullen and McDonald here with you. Appreciate you streaming in with us on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Thank Mike Gill for hopping on. Thank in advance Mark Farzetta, who's going to join us coming up in about 20 minutes from now. Johnny Mac, this show is an opinion-based show. You've got yours, I've got mine. And when we get guests on, we ask them theirs. We'll certainly do that with Mark Farzetta about 20 minutes from now, and they don't always match up. And at this stage of the year, 2 weeks before camp opens up, we're all doing a whole heck of a lot of projecting. That's part of what is fun about an upcoming season is you're thinking, you know what somebody's going to do. First of all, what the team's going to do overall, but then on an individual basis, how good a player is going to be, how shaky could be if they're in a starting position, what effect it can have on whether the team's going to win or lose games. And yours and my opinions don't always match up. You're a little higher on Jordan Davis than I am. I'm a little higher on Nakobe Dean than you are. 2 rookies who are coming into the Eagles, and we'll see how big an effect they have right off the bat when they jump into the lineup. And then there's the quarterback position, which is always the number one topic each and every single year, every single team. It's not like, oh, my God, they talk so much about Jalen Hurts. Oh, they talk about the starting quarterback this much in every town across the National Football League. It's always about the quarterback. Yes. That's just the way the game is played these days in the National Football League. Well, our very own Derek Gunn stirred up a hornet's nest yesterday by reporting that in conversation with someone around the Eagles, and Derek did not specify if it was an Eagle player, an Eagle coach, an Eagle front office personnel person. He did not give any further depth than I was talking to someone about the Eagles. And this person decided to say that in a 10-play session in the Eagles practice, which I said this last night on WIP, and you can please confirm this for me, John McMullen, because you were there, I was not. I wouldn't even call what the Eagles have done the last couple of months practice. It's not a practice. It's a gathering. It's a drill. Yeah. It's not a practice. When you never actually put 11 players out there on the field against 11 other players, then it's not a practice. It's workouts. It's not even practice. And in D. Gunn's quote, he said he used the word practice, which I doubt highly, that in a 10-play session that Jalen Hurts had 3 INTs, 4 incompletes, and 3 sacks. You were there, and I know they probably had a couple of reps and or drills that you might not have been able to see, Johnny Mac. It's 7-on-7. Yeah. Could Jalen Hurts possibly have been as bad as Derek Gunn quoted someone to have said?
Here's a couple things, and I'm glad you brought this up, Jody, because I want to make this clear. People get, they hear what they want to hear. I think Derek said that on his show. And Derek can speak for himself. He's got his own show, and he's got his pulpit, and he's an opinion based. He was not recording this. I think people take it off he was just saying on his talk show what someone had told him. And I think people got caught in the weeds of what you just said, the description, 10 plays of, whatever it was, 3 interceptions, 4 incompletions, 3 sacks. And then, it's not possible in the format that they have. The important part to me was later when he said some people in the Eagles organization, and I'm paraphrasing, could have been one, are uncomfortable with Jalen Hurts. I think that's true. That's 100% true. Derek's not making stuff up. Derek's been doing this for a long time. Now, somebody who knew contacted somebody who knows contact. That didn't happen. First of all, let me give you an example of why this didn't happen. That's getting in the weeds. there were 2 practices open to the media, and the Eagles are, as you said, Jody, are only running 7-on-7s. Okay. The first practice, and I'll hat tip to Elliott Shore-Parks because he pays attention to this stuff. He's nuts. And by the way, ESP, congratulations. He just got married. So we give him that hat tip. And also Hunter Brody. I'm going down a rabbit hole. He's getting married. So congratulations to another friend, Hunter Brody. But the first practice, Hurts was 10 of 11 in 7-on-7 drills. 10 of 11, Jody. 2 things there. He had 11 total reps. Okay. Nobody has 10 reps in a row in practice. You rotate through the quarterbacks. Gardner Minshew had 7 reps. Carson Strong had 2 reps. The Eagles practiced for 45 stinking minutes. Nobody's got 10 reps in a row. That's number one. The second practice, he was 10 of 14. 7-on-7s are tilted towards the offense to succeed. 10 of 14, by the way, not that good.
Yeah,
wasn't that sharp. Okay. Wasn't that sharp in the second day. So people get down into the weeds of these things. And look, that kind of stuff is not. And I think it was Mike Garafolo who said last week on the show, we don't play football in the spring. That was his guy. You're not playing football. So good or bad, I'm sure Jalen Hurts had bad OTA practices where we weren't there. He had one good one when I was there and one mediocre one when I was there. I'm sure he had a bad one when I wasn't there. You know, that's part of the process. Like a spring training pitcher, you work on some things and all of a sudden you get rocked and people are like, ooh, so-and-so gave up 9 runs in the Citrus League. Who cares? He's probably working on a curveball, slider, whatever. Quarterbacks do the same things. That part of it's not an issue. The part of it that's an issue, and again, I think people got too much in the weeds about 3 interceptions and 4 incompletions and 3 sacks, and you don't even take sacks. You just blow the whistle. And if you can't get the football out of your hands in a 7-on-7, well, yeah, then there's an issue. There are people in that building that are uncomfortable with Jalen Hurts as the starting quarterback. And that's why we're having these discussions all the time. And by the way, and I say this, the Eagles did a very good job of making people forget. They were trying to get better, whether you believe it or not. And I'm not talking to you, Jody. I'm talking to the fans. Whether you believe it or not, they wanted stinking Russell Wilson, and they were going to have the conversation with Deshaun Watson. Now, I believe they wouldn't have gone where Cleveland went contract-wise, but that's just my belief. They were going to have the stinking conversation if he would listen to them. They wanted to get better at the quarterback position. Now, it's also fair to point out, and I try to point this out as well, they didn't want Baker Mayfield. They don't want Jimmy Garoppolo, who you could argue are slight upgrades at the quarterback position. So they do like Jalen Hurts, but they do have question marks. And there are people in that building who are uncomfortable. And instead of worrying about some description, and who knows, maybe this is a former player and they're just hyperbole off the top of their head because he had a bad set of plays. That's not the issue. The issue is the bigger picture. That's how I would frame that story.
No, I'll defend those who are getting down in the weeds, and I love D-Gun as much as anybody, but if somebody said that to you, would you say that on your show?
No, I wouldn't for this reason, though, Jody, because I'm on practice and I know it's not possible to happen. I'm at practice every day, and I know that's not how practice works. And I know nobody's going to have 10 straight reps at the quarterback position. Now, maybe if you get deeper into training camp, and you're having a dual practice with the Jets and you're doing team drills and you're doing a drive down the field, maybe it would happen then.
Yeah.
But not in the off season, not on 7-on-7s. You just rotate reps and you rotate quarterbacks. So nobody is getting 10 straight reps to begin with in the off season. Certainly not with the Eagles. They don't have that many reps to be handing out willy-nilly. Sacks don't exist. You know, you can just blow the whistle early. But again, I've seen Jalen Hurts, and I've been going to football practices for 28 years, Jody. I've seen Jalen Hurts in a lot of practices, and he's only been around a short time. He's not holding on to the football 3 times in 7-on-7 drills. I mean, it might happen occasionally, but not that. So no. So how I would have framed it is, all right, this whomever it is just, you know, trying to point out to me that he struggled badly, and I would just use the back end. People in the organization are uncomfortable with Jalen Hurts. That's what I would have done. But not everybody's at practice every day. So if you tell someone who's not used to going to practice, and I'm not saying I have no idea. I'm you know, Derek's not at practice every day. Maybe he doesn't know. I don't know. But to me, yeah, if someone tells me, well, that's not possible. And that's the text I got. Said, you know, that's, you know, not possible in a more colorful way.
Right. And that's why I don't have a problem with anybody who's got a problem with the statement, because it was impossible. I get it. He's getting to an eventual point. And the most important point is, if Derek's source is on point and in a position to put forth that strong an opinion and no other opinions of movers and shakers within the Eagles, the fact that the Eagles are uncomfortable with Jalen Hurts, that could very well be true. I'm not refuting that. I'm not saying, where the hell did Derek come up with that? That might be true. And you're pointing to evidence of, you know, they did try and go out and upgrade the quarterback position during the offseason. Speaks for itself with Russell Wilson and Deshaun Watson. I'm just not sure that I would have gone down the road of, and in a 10-play session, no, it didn't happen. Even if someone else said it happened just to try and make a point, I would edit that out of my conversation. I would not put that into mine and say, this is what somebody told me. I'd do them a favor by taking that out of the discussion, because it didn't happen. And yeah, it was probably hyperbole just to try and make a point. Don't use somebody else's hyperbole when you're describing what you're getting as far as information goes about the Eagle quarterback situation.
Yeah, and I, you know, like I said, I mean, they're, you know, I can't speak to someone's hyperbole or someone's, you know, phrasing. I just know from a personal level, and again, 28 years of attending football practice, that's not how 7-on-7s in the off season work. I mean, that's and you know, someone texted me right away, and that was, you know, imparted to me as well. And AJ Brown went on Twitter, and people can, you know, AJ's obviously very close to Jalen Hurts, and they're very good friends for people that don't know. So he is going to always defend him, but you know, he was over the top in the defense because, you know, that's not how OTAs work. That's not how 7-on-7s work.
Right. And the thing that impressed me most about AJ Brown was making historical Eagle references. That 3 touchdowns.
How about
to
Vince
me,
Papale?
4 fighting plays between T.O. and Donovan McNabb, and Vince Papale coming off the retired list to make 3 grabs. Good for you, AJ Brown. I didn't know you had such a grasp of Eagles history. And yeah, he's always going to take Jalen Hurts back. Number one, because he's the quarterback of the team he's going to play for. And number 2, they've been buds for years.
But the bigger part of this, and I want to emphasize this, Jody, is people in the organization being uncomfortable with Jalen Hurts. I think that's true. I think that part of it's true. I think that part of it is understandable as well. And we just talked about it a little bit with Mike Gill. There's a big decision coming up sooner rather than later. Even if you want to kick the can down the road, it's still coming up. The clock is still ticking, and you got to make a decision. And if someone changed the rules, Jody, and the Eagles had to make that decision today, and I'm going to put a percentage on it, I would say 98% they're not extending him. Not extending him. If they were forced to do it today and make a decision, which luckily they don't have to, so that, there's a lot of question marks, I would phrase it as.
Right, but here's the key to me. The key guys who will be in concert with making the decision of going forth with Jalen Hurts, they've already made it this year. He's their quarterback. Did they inquire on Russell Wilson? I believe they did. They investigate Deshaun Watson and the possible. Oh, yeah, I think they did. So you can certainly read into that they are not 100% married to Jalen Hurts, but they've made the decision. At some point, you have to make a decision. They've made the decision for this year. Jalen Hurts is their guy. They're going to have to make a decision for next year. We need to see what he does this year. Nobody would make that decision ahead of time, or at least the way that Jalen has played to this point has left them saying we need to see more before we make the decision because they can wait.
Yeah,
that's Howie Roseman think.
Yeah.
What's Nick Sirianni think? The Eagles have people at practice and assistant coaches and scouts and other front office personnel and the like, and don't know who Derek Gunn was getting his opinion from that was shared with him. If it wasn't Sirianni and it wasn't Howie, I'm only going to put so much credence to it. Those are the two guys. They're the movers and shakers. And with the quarterback position, Jeff Lurie will also be heard from. And I'm guessing that's not the guy that Derek was talking to that gave him the opinion.
Hey, you never know. D. Gunn's plugged in, man. You never know. And Jeffrey probably wouldn't have he should, but he probably wouldn't have the best handle on how practice is run.
Right. That was one of the reasons why I don't think it was Jeff. And oh, by the way,
maybe it's Julian. Maybe it's Gardner Minshew. Ed Kratz brought that up to me. Maybe Gardner is trying to create issues. How about that? We can start that, Jody.
Yeah, go ahead.
I see Mark Farzetta.
You go ahead and do that. You can.
No, I'm joking. Gardner
unknown sources tell me. Yeah, no, not.
No, I'm joking. I hope people realize that.
All right, he's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. That makes us Mac and Mac here on Birds 365. We're bringing another JAKIB Media guy to the forefront. He is the host of the Eagles postgame show. Did a great job with it last year. Going to be doing it again this year. I've known this knucklehead for too many years. I haven't talked to him in a while. Looking forward to doing just that. Mark Farzetta joins us next here on Birds 365.
Go for the polls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Action News at 11 with Rick Williams. It's the team you trust to bring it all together. The stories that impact your community. A sports roundup for the locals. And the AccuWeather forecast you depend on. Action News at 11 with Rick Williams.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake a mom. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
We got McMullen and McDonald here with Young Birds 365 and another follically challenged individual. You ever notice that, John? We got a lot of, Gill's got
We like it, you
a ton
know.
of hair compared to the three guys that are on the screen right now. Mark Farzetta from the Farzy Show on YouTube and also host of the JAKIB Media Eagles post-game show. You are doing that again this year, Farzy, right?
I believe, as far as I know, yes, I will be back with JAKIB Media for another football season. Looking forward to that, of course. What's going on there, Jody McDonald? How you doing, brother?
Yeah.
Very good, bud. Good to see you again. And he's got a cool studio. It's better than our. Well, we're at the beach, which is good.
Come on.
Hold on.
Gotta
Mike
get
Gill
Ocean
just
Casino.
passed with a metal finder on my on my screen back there. Didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah, the Farzy Show every day at 6. It drops. Got to say that.
Thank you,
Mark Farzetta. Good to see you, buddy.
John. A pleasure, an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate you coming on. I guess we'll start, our own Derek Gunn as well, creating a bit of a firestorm with Jalen Hurts. And I think people got lost in the weeds of this, Mark, and I explained it. I think the more important part to me was people within the Eagles organization are uncomfortable with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
And why would anybody think that's not true? Why would you be comfortable with Jalen Hurts?
I think one of the most premature stories in the history of Philadelphia is anybody talking about a $40 million deal for Jalen Hurts. That is way too cart before the horse type of thing. Now, to address what Gunner said, I'm right with you, John. As far as his report went, not his opinion, but his report, a source told him something. He repeated what the source says. That's what a good reporter does. Yeah. So this address, but also move past anybody that wants to say Derek Gunn made it up. That's not Derek Gunn. That's, no Derek Gunn. That is not his personality. That's not what he strives for. And I love what he did say on his show when he talked about how Twitter is Satan. I definitely agree with that. And then second thing is this is about what somebody told him, not what he just wanted to put out there.
Exactly.
So I think when I first read the report and saw the thing about sacked, he was sacked. I thought, what are they counting it? Because obviously even 11 on 11s, you got a red jersey on. No one's sacking you. So I'm
blow the whistle early. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So I went to exactly where you went, John, with this isn't about Derek Gunn. This is about someone or people in the NovaCare complex that are doubting Jalen Hurts. And for the record, everyone should have their doubts about him. Has he proven himself as a franchise quarterback yet, as a long-term solution yet? No, I actually see the situation, I think, similar to how the Eagles see the situation, which is just as they looked at it last year, it's another audition for Jalen Hurts as to whether or not he can be the guy going forward. And he's going to have to be better than the incoming quarterback class. That's how the front office should be looking at it. But to go out of their way to try to put out some type of negative report about incompletions and interceptions and sacks during 7-on-7s, that just seems like it's somebody that's almost out to get Jalen Hurts, as opposed to somebody that's like, hey, you know what? Let's see how this year plays out. It sounds like he might already have somebody that's not rooting for his best interest for the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, Farzy, I'm going to make you look into your crystal ball, your football crystal ball for my hypothetical question.
Okay.
There are 3 scenarios that can play themselves out with the Philadelphia Eagles this year as it pertains to their starting quarterback. Number 1, he's great. He jumps into the top 10 quarterbacks in the National Football League. The Eagles win 11, 12, 13 games. There's no questions asked. It probably happens in season. The Eagles give them that you kind of doubt, I kind of doubt, John kind of doubts, $35 or $40 million contract extension. But it happens.
Right.
Or Derek Gunn's source was right. The Eagles are petrified of Jalen Hurts, and he gets off to a slow start, and people are clamoring for the backup quarterback by week 8 of this season. And we know that the Eagles are drafting a quarterback or going and finding a free agent quarterback. Easier said than done. But they are moving off Jalen Hurts going into the 2023 season. Or it's somewhere in the middle. And Jalen Hurts is kind of what he was last year, maybe slightly improved. A.J. Brown should make him a better quarterback, but he's not cracking the top 10. He's there in the middle, somewhere between 15 and 18 again this year. Then what do the Eagles do? Which of those 3 scenarios is most likely in your mind?
If you're betting on it with the most likely scenario, I think it's the middle scenario that you played out in terms of what will most likely happen. But I will not be surprised at all if it is the other scenario, because middle of the road isn't going to cut it for Jalen Hurts. Being terrible, obviously, isn't going to cut it. But I wouldn't be surprised if that number 1 scenario happens where the quarterback of the future is already on your roster and his name is Jalen Hurts. Because if he is not better than what he was substantially last year, with another year of Nick Sirianni's offense, with now A.J. Brown, with more experience from some of the young guys in the offensive line, Dallas Goedert being your number 1 tight end, no Zach Ertz to move on from, all that stuff, and you're more stable with this offense, then and this receiving core, Devontae Smith, another year older, if he's not substantially better, then it's a big step backwards for Jalen Hurts. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if he does take the ball and chuck it downfield and show that he's got the arm strength, but more importantly, the arm accuracy, and takes individual steps forward, and then obviously elevates his own game with what's around him. That is a likely scenario to play through, but I don't think it's the most likely scenario to play through. I think he has it in him. I think he's the type of quarterback that has put the work in the offseason. I think he's got a good head on his shoulders. I think the comfortability with Nick Sirianni's offense again for another year and the talent around him being better than what it was last year. I don't see a reason to really root against the guy, certainly, and I would see a reason why some people would bet on him already. He just has to go out there this year and prove it.
Are the expectations unrealistic when it comes to Jalen Hurts, Mark, when you talk about kind of the 2 camps? And I think there's this thought process of, can he turn into a top 10 quarterback or even a top 5 quarterback? My answer to that would probably be no. And I don't think he has that ceiling as a player. The San Francisco 49ers have made 2 significant runs over the past 3 years with Jimmy Garoppolo. They were minutes away from winning a Super Bowl. Probably should have won that game. Last year, a new Eagle, if he intercepts Matt Stafford, they're going back to the Super Bowl. All with Jimmy Garoppolo playing quarterback. And oh, by the way, the year in between had more to do with Nick Bosa getting injured, or they probably would have made a deep run as well. And they had a number of other significant injuries,
including Garoppolo, who missed time.
Yeah,
right.
Long story short, but I don't care about Jimmy. He's not part of it.
Right.
But he's a game manager. Have we gotten too far into the all or nothing? I'd like to call it the Ricky Bobby rules. If you're not first, you're last. Everybody's like, we're not great, so you got to tear it. You got to go. What happened to the game manager? Why is that the dirtiest word in professional football, or hyphenated word?
Because it's not easy to play quarterback in the NFL, but I don't think it's ever been easier to play quarterback in the NFL than it is right now. So it's like game managers don't cut it anymore. And I know a lot of people, when they think of game manager, one of the first people they think of is Eli Manning. And Eli Manning won 2 Super Bowls as a game manager. Now, he did ball out in a lot of those games, and it was pretty incredible beating the Patriots and all that stuff. But I think people think of Eli Manning when they think of game manager. I think Jalen Hurts can be better than a game manager, because in all sincerity, I mean, we have 1 full season of him as the starting quarterback of this team to evaluate. And if he has put in that work in the offseason, if he's been out there working on his mechanics and he's working with Tom House and he's got the better weapons around him and, again, familiarity with the system, if you don't see a big leap forward for all those reasons in his second year as a starter for the Eagles, then yeah, John, I'll be right there with you and say that he will never be a top 10 quarterback, never even be a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. He'll only be a game manager that has the ability to maybe make some insane big play, either with his legs or be able to hit a guy on a slant if he's accurate enough to do that, and that guy be able to take it 60 yards for a touchdown. I think this is the year we're going to find out a lot, because all the talk from Jalen Hurts, from the Eagles, from Eagles players that want to defend him, because if you want to look at one thing that's a positive about the Derek Gunn report, was how quickly a guy like A.J. Brown jumped to the defense of his quarterback and friend. So that's a big thing. So if this year plays out and he only takes a little step forward with the work ethic that's supposed to be great, and I believe in that, the talent that's supposed to be so much better than what he had a year ago, then that's almost a step backwards. I mean, that's a if you're not first, you're last type of scenario for Jalen Hurts. So I think it's got to be that major step forward, considering the circumstances around him and what's at stake. Because again, I go back to it, as I did many times throughout last year. It's not about just Jalen Hurts right now. It's about him beating not just Gardner Minshew or anybody else behind him on the depth chart. It's about him being better than the incoming quarterback class, which as you guys know, is supposed to be pretty damn good next year.
And Farzy, I'll use the adjective that you used, substantially better. That's what we're going to be debating all year. Yeah. Is he a little bit better? Is he significantly? Is he substantially better? That's what the debate's going to come down to, and we'll all have our opinion on it as we crunch the numbers. All right. Two guys, keys to the Philadelphia Eagles this year. How much pressure are they under? Knowing full well, in most situations, there's more pressure on one than the other just because of the position they have. Nick Sirianni and or Jonathan Gannon. Who's under more pressure this year?
Nick Sirianni, because it's amazing.
Because he's the head coach?
Because, well, here's the thing. Jonathan Gannon, top 10 defense last year, and a lot of people forget about that because there was no turnovers, there's no sacks and all this stuff. And I remember talking to Steven Nelson last year, and he told me about how Jonathan Gannon had a genius scheme. Genius was the word used, because it's all about first off, recognizing the personnel that you have and then not allowing the big play. Okay. And that worked to the Eagles' advantage, especially towards the end of last season. But when people talk about pressure and Jonathan Gannon, I don't think he had a great year by any means. This is his first year as a defensive coordinator. But think about this. Even without a great year, this guy is getting head coaching conversation already.
Three interviews.
It's amazing. Hey, look, I got nothing against Jonathan Gannon. I found out we buy our gelato at the same store. So go figure. But this guy, what pressure? I just feel like certain people are looked at as all of a sudden the golden boy. This guy, oh, you're so lucky to get Jonathan Gannon as your defensive coordinator. He's going to be great. And then there's a lot of sputtering out of the gate. There's a lot of struggles. Second half of the season, we can all talk about how much easier the schedule was in the second half of the year. But bottom line is they performed as a defense, and a lot of credit goes to him. But immediately after that, he gets the head coaching interviews. You mentioned the three right there, John. I don't think he has pressure. I think the NFL, for whatever reason, loves Jonathan Gannon. I think the NFL.
Here's where you're not counting in the pressure, Farzy.
Okay.
When you get head coaching interviews, you're expected to come back the next year and be a defensive genius. You were thought highly enough to get an interview for a head coaching job. Now you come back to a middle of the pack defense. What the hell happened, Jonathan Gannon?
Well, I don't think you're going to have a middle of the pack defense. I mean, would you rather walk into the season with what you had last year or what you have this year? So again, I think
they've upgraded the talent. What happens if the defense is not substantially better, to use a Farzetta word, than they were last year? I expect substantially better out of the Eagles defense. If they don't get that, doesn't that portray Jonathan Gannon pretty damn poorly?
Yeah, but I think the biggest decision that goes as to why I think more pressure's on Nick Sirianni is because if you're the play caller last year and then you decide all you need to do during the week is not all you do, because it is a lot of work. I don't want to disparage that. But if you go through the week and all you're going to be doing is your game planning and you're not going to be calling plays on game day, you're taking pressure off of yourself and you're putting it on Shane Steichen. I just think Jonathan Gannon is looked at as almost he's Teflon by other NFL organizations, maybe even including the Eagles organization as a whole. So I look at Nick Sirianni as the guy that has a lot more pressure on him, even though he's trying to push off some of the responsibility on him. For whatever reason, Jonathan Gannon is looked at with Disney glasses, I guess. And
well,
Nick Sirianni different. Yeah.
Now, Farzy, if you were in line with him to get gelato, he's going to win you over in those 5 minutes.
No, I don't know. He went pistachio. I'm not a big pistachio guy.
Not good. Not good.
Now, here's the thing with JG. Bottom line, and Jody said substantially better. Well, your top 10. All right, maybe you go to 5. I think they're going to be better. Hassan Reddick, Jordan Davis, James Bradbury, Kaiser White, Nakobe Dean. If you want to throw Jaquiski Tart in there as well, how could they not be better? But here's the deal, Farzy. This is Philadelphia. He's got to get sacks.
Yeah.
Now, if Eagles fans who are already so upset about JG, if they heard him talk about sacks behind the scenes, they would lose their freaking minds. He does not give a flying you-know-what about sacks. Him and Nick Sirianni, turnovers, which they didn't have enough of, stopping explosive plays. Those are the 2 things they want to do. Eagles were very, very good at stopping explosive plays. Now you got to tighten it up a little bit, too much soft coverage. But he could have the 20th ranked defense, Mark. And if they have 50 sacks, Eagles fans will be happy. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're out for blood, and sacks are a way to get after blood. Now, here's the thing: there's a happy medium between the 2 parties. One, the Philadelphia Eagle fan base, and then obviously the Eagles and what Jonathan Gannon wants to do. I think this upcoming year, I don't think there's going to be more sacks that are dialed, or excuse me, more blitzes that are dialed up or anything like that. But I think we're going to have something closer to what we saw under Jim Schwartz, because Jim Schwartz wasn't dialing up blitzes left and right. He had a wide 9 that kept pressure on the quarterback quite routinely without having to dial up a blitz. I think with guys like Jordan Davis in the middle of the line, obviously having Fletcher Cox there as well, Brandon Graham being back, Josh Sweat looked like he was coming into his own a little bit, and of course Hassan Reddick being back there now, I think you're going to get inherently more pressure on the quarterback without dialing up the blitzes that so many people, myself included. John, we spoke after every game last year. I wanted more blitzes. I think you're going to overall get more pressure, maybe not by way of the blitz, but simply by way of having better personnel win their one-on-one matchups on the defensive side of the football. If you're able to do that, you're going to, guess what? Force those turnovers, because you're going to force guys into mistakes. Like when they played the Giants, you can force Daniel Jones into mistakes, and it's not that hard to do so. That's what I want to see more of from Jonathan Gannon. Be able to force a quarterback into making a mistake, force a running back into fumbling that football. When they were able to do that last year and get the scoop and scores or the pick sixes from Darius Slay, the scoop and score they had against the Denver Broncos last year with Davion Taylor, like those are all plays that Davion Taylor started rather. Those are all things that I think Jonathan Gannon's defense in the upcoming year with better personnel can force an offense into more turnovers by getting that type of pressure.
Here's where I can stand by my need to be substantially better defensively statement going into this year. The NFL has forever, a long time, used yards per game as the rankings. Where are you ranked defensively? I absolutely believe points allowed per game is better than that.
Certainly.
There are different scenarios whereby certain things happen that can slant it a little way with either of those 2 stats. But if you ask me which one is a better judgment of an overall defense, I would say points against more so than yards per game. The Eagles were in the bottom half of the league last year at points against. So that's room for improvement. That's where Jonathan Gannon, because John said, well, they were 10th. Could they get all the way up to 5th? I'll look more at points against, points scored against, than I will yards per. And yeah, I expect the Eagles go from the bottom half to the top 3rd in the league. Do you think that's unfair?
I don't think it's unfair, because I agree with you. I've always looked more so at points per game than I have at yards, because you could be allowing yards all day, but if you really close it down in the red zone, you got a great red zone defense, then I think you're a little bit better than another team that's just allowing yards, because they don't look up at the scoreboard at the end of the game and say, oh, they allowed more yards, so they win. No, it's all about the points. So I agree with you there. And no, with the personnel, with some changes, with maybe being a little bit more aggressive with the personnel that you have. If you do dial up a blitz, I got a lot more confidence that those guys getting home. And one of the things I loved about both Nakobe Dean and Hassan Reddick when they officially became Eagles was they both said, just let me go out there and play football. Let me go out there and do the things that I know I can do to help this team win. And if you, take the handcuffs off these guys and let them go run up and down a football field, they're going to make plays for you. They're going to make turnovers happen. And that's how this defense can take those big steps forward, those substantial steps forward going into next season.
Yeah, and to Jody's point, believe me, Jonathan Gannon, even more so Jim Schwartz, that's all they talk about. They don't care about anything else except points scored. So they look at it that way as well. But I do think it's fair to point out that, the Eagles rank second in the NFL in yards allowed per play with that direct of talent they had on defense last year. Ninth in fewest 75-yard touchdown drives. Lack of explosive plays allowed. They were third. Those are good signs for a defense that has an infusion of talent. I mean, they did not have a lot of talent last year. So when people start looking at Jonathan Gannon and say, why are people interviewing? Why is Denver interviewing? Houston, Minnesota, why are they interviewing? That's why. They look at that defense and they say, what the hell? He doesn't have much. And all of a sudden, he's putting together a little bit of smoke and mirrors. Now you have Hassan Reddick, James Bradbury, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It should be better to what Jody stated, but I'm not sure how much better because it was pretty good last year. I think people don't recognize that because of the lack of sacks. Now, I kind of spin this off to my next
bottom half of
question.
the league's bottom half of the league.
Yes, but when you talk about points allowed, again, you have to put that context, Jody, because the offense ineffectiveness, where are they starting? The Eagles' kick return game. We talk about Michael Clay. I mean, they had the worst cover. They were bottom 5 in return and coverage, so they were behind the 8 ball as far as length of field, that kind of thing. That's why you look at these contextual stats. But I want to talk about Jordan Davis because I talk about this all the time, Mark. This to me, and I use the word esoteric, he's going to be an esoteric player. He's going to be dominant, but it's not going to be on the stat sheet. Because of where he was drafted, is that going to be acceptable to the fan base? Are they going to realize what they're seeing? In other words, if Jordan Davis is taking up 2 or 3 blockers, and that allows Hassan Reddick to get loose for a sack, or that allows Nakobe Dean to do what he did at Georgia, our fans going to recognize Jordan Davis's impact?
Yes, I think they will. I think we live in an era now where a lot of fans are watching the game film that's available through NFL Game Pass, and I think people pay so much attention, more so I think than ever, to the way defensive lines plays, whether it be zero technique, whether it be wide 9, whatever it might be. I think people are focused in on that more so. I think the thing that hurt Fletcher Cox the most last year was, what was it, after the Raiders game where he talked about how he doesn't get paid to stop the run. He gets paid to get after the quarterback. I think that reflected real negative on him. But I think with Jordan Davis, people are looking for that fresh start and him to take over for Fletcher Cox. And I think if they do run a lot of what they were able to run at Georgia, and you're able to see Jordan Davis and you're able to see Nakobe Dean do exactly what you said by running through that hole almost like a running back would on the offensive side of things, and you see Nakobe Dean being able to make those plays and they end in sacks or they end in tackles for loss, and Jordan Davis is the reason they're having that, then I think a lot of people are going to be focused on Jordan Davis because he will be taking up those double teams. And I think you're going to have enough assets at your disposal where if you have Jordan Davis taking up 2 guys in the middle of the line of scrimmage, and then that's allowing Josh Sweat to get off the edge, or that's allowing Hassan Reddick to get off the edge as well, or Nakobe Dean, as you mentioned, come right up the middle, then I think a lot of people are going to be focused on what Jordan Davis is able to do. It's one thing that I think as Fletcher Cox's career has gone on, I think he set a high bar by getting after the quarterback. And when those stats went away, I think that's where people thought his production was just flat out going away. But I think with Jordan Davis, he's going to have an opportunity in his career to do both, and I think people will notice that.
All right, I'm giving you an over-under of 2.5 sacks by Derek Barnett this year. You going over or under?
I'm going under. I had zero confidence in Derek Barnett. I'm going under 2.5 sacks.
All right, under 2.5.
Why is he back on his team?
Fourth,
I don't know, but I love the question. They just like it. They feel like they can get more out of that first that first round pick. The falling on the fumble that Brandon Graham created in the Super Bowl of Tom Brady. I don't know. They just feel like they can still get more out of him, and I don't know why.
So the Eagles are going to sign him for the 2027 season because he fell on the fumble in the Super Bowl in 2000. How long does he get to continue living his NFL dream because he fell on the fumble in the Super Bowl? It's my only question. Here's my one concern. And John, thank you for letting me get this in. Here's one thing that scares me a little bit about the Philadelphia Eagles. They talk a lot about leadership and hard work and putting in the effort and being a professional. And it's never a bad thing, but I think from time to time, they overemphasize it. They can't say enough glowing things about Jalen Hurts and the work ethic he had and the leadership that he shows, yet they're looking for other quarterbacks. And Derek Barnett, it's great to have Derek Barnett back. He's been such a professional. He's in Philadelphia. 2 sacks last year. Some point, you need to prioritize production and skills over leadership and hard work. I'm not bad-mouthing hard work. I think a hard worker every single day of the week. Mm-hmm. But when you start to put that above what guys actually have as far as skills and production, I think you could be heading down a sticky road. How about you?
Hey, I value work ethic as much as the next guy. But when you've had a couple of years at it and the production's not there, hey, we love the fact that you're working at this really hard, but we need production as the bottom line. And if you're working this hard and it's still not paying off, that's actually more of an indictment than anything that you're just not maybe ready for that spot. Yeah. And I think Derek Barnett's an example of that. And all the good things in the world, hey, maybe he goes somewhere else and he puts it together and somebody else knows how to use them and he doesn't have to deal with injuries or a stigma of being a first-round pick or anything like that. I just don't think that's where it happens here in Philadelphia.
Well, I do think, it's kind of like a red flag, Mark, in that, like, nobody talks about A.J. Brown's work ethic. Look at the guy.
Right.
He obviously, works pretty hard, but nobody talks about it because he's good. They talk about his game first. When they start talking about your work ethic, your intangibles, and we go back to the quarterback, but Derek Barnett, other players as well, you start to say, why are you going to that first? Because typically when we talk about Aaron Rodgers, we're not talking about his work ethic. No. We're talking about his arm talent, his ability to place the football. Patrick Mahomes is all platform stuff, all that kind of stuff. When the Eagles and Nick Sirianni, specifically, I'll take it back to the head coach. When they play up stuff like that, are they signaling something, saying, "All right, we got to get better at this position"?
I think as long as it's a young, unproven player, because I still think Jalen Hurts is young. I still think he's unproven. I think you got to bring up his work ethic. And I'll use an example in another sport, and it did not work out well here in Philadelphia. Early on in the Ben Simmons era, seeing him in the offseason working out and shooting threes and all that, I'm like, good for this guy. He's working out. He's working on what we're all yelling and screaming about. It never came to fruition because it was all just smoke and mirrors. But I think you have a lot more guys with Jalen Hurts. Again, the guys that jumped to defend Jalen Hurts about a negative report coming out, and we talked about it earlier with Derek Gunn, that to me speaks more volumes than any coach saying something sweet and nice about his quarterback, because that falls in the category of, well, what's he going to say? He's a lazy SOB and he doesn't want to work. No, that's not going to help anybody. But when other players come out and talk about the work ethic, talk about how Jalen Hurts demands respect at this young age and level of inexperience, I think it's very important to lay that out there, because that means when he shows up for training camp and they go to those joint practices and then the season eventually starts, all it does is let you know he's doing everything in his power to reach his full potential. And I think that's why it's relevant for a younger guy, an inexperienced guy like Jalen Hurts, more so than it is for a guy like Derek Barnett. I want to know that they're putting in the work in the offseason to reach their full potential.
All right, last one from me, Farzy, and shame on you, the fact that you didn't pick up that it was some high school gym out in California that Ben Simmons was working out against other high school kids.
Yeah.
We all could have picked up on that one, Farzy.
I thought they were like middle schoolers. Who knew?
high school, middle school. Yeah. How about pick on kids your own size? Anyway, Eagles post-game show this year, if it's done on remote, who is the one guy you don't want to sit next to during a break because you know they're just going to be eating? You don't want to sit next to this guy because the elbows come out, and or she. I don't want to leave Devin out of this conversation.
Yes.
You just want no part of being near them because they're going to be excited about being on the air, and their answer is to eat as much as humanly possible.
Ooh, okay. So Derek Gunn is much more protective of food that he's made, like food he's grilled. Like, for instance, I can't even be certain that he's grilled food because no one I know outside his family have ever sampled this food. So he's more likely to protect food he made. So I'd rather sit next to him because he didn't make the food at like Ocean Casino, for instance. Now, if Gary Cobb is involved, if G Cobb is involved, I'm just taking a step back, probably putting caution tape around him, and then just making sure he has, and I might have to wear like chainmail gloves like knights in the medieval times, just to make sure I don't lose a finger if I reach for a fry or something. But other than that's probably the guy I would try to avoid.
Just say you want to sit next to Devin. It's easy.
G-Cobb can eat. That's, good point.
Well, every time I see Devin now, she's chugging beers on the old TV.
Yeah, how'd that her on social media?
And I hit her up after that last one. That was pretty much empty. That was pretty much empty, that beer. You ain't fooling me none.
I wonder how Devin gets picked out of the crowd all the time. I'm shocked that happens.
Yeah, I don't get picked out like that. What the hell, guys? Come on.
There are tremendous cameramen all throughout the Delaware Valley, and they find Devin Caney pretty easily. Farzy, a pleasure. Good to catch up with you, brother.
Same to you, man.
Looking forward to listening to you this year, coming up with the Birds as well here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Thanks for jumping on with us today. We'll get you on before the season starts.
Sounds good. Jody, John, thanks for having me on, guys. Great catching up with you guys.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Farzetta. And yes, he is as follically challenged on top of his head as either McMullen or I. I don't know if he's using a little of that hair club for men stuff, but he's still got the dark stash and goatee.
Yeah, I can't go that route, man. My wife would yell at me. She says it looks stupid. So
I'm way too lazy to do that more than anything else. If Farzi's got the upkeep on that, I don't know if that's au natural, but damn, still looks good on him. All right, McMullen and McDonald coming back. We need to put a bow on the show. Keep it right here on Birds 365.
Go for the pulls and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Action News at 11 with Rick Williams. It's the team you trust to bring it all together. The stories that impact your community. A sports roundup for the locals. And the AccuWeather forecast you depend on. Action News at 11 with Rick Williams.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
7 on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake 'em out. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Go for the poles and the pools. Go for the oohs and the ahs. Go for the bubbles and the bubbly. Go for the story and the stories. Go for the win. Go to Ocean Casino Resort. Book your trip at theoceanac.com.
Coming down the home stretch on a Bird 365 with Mac and Mac. Thanks to Mark Farzetta and Mike Gill, two good Philly guys talking heavy Eagles with us here today. Want to jump outside the Eagles for just a second to wrap up the show today. And it has to do with football broadcasting news. Don't know if you saw this, John, but your boy, Randy Moss, is out as part of the Monday Night Countdown on ESPN, replaced by RG3, who I got to admit, I saw do some broadcast work over the past year. And I said, hey, he's not bad. I was actually impressed with the way that he handled himself in a couple of different roles this past year. But I got to tell you, John, I am just flat out shocked that they would take Randy Moss off that show. I catch it on Sunday mornings. I go back and forth between a couple of them, but ESPN's is always first. Well, no, I guess the NFL Network starts early too. Used to be ESPN had that to themselves before there was ever an NFL Network. They would always start early than everybody else. So you put it on, you leave it on, you could end up watching 3 straight hours of pregame stuff on ESPN. I kind of like Rex because he was the Jets head coach at one point. They had good chemistry on that show. And they're taking Moss off. I can't. What is going to happen to You Got Moss?
Yeah.
How can that show exist without You Got Moss?
Yeah,
I really like the show and I like the people on it, but I got so effing tired of You Got Moss. Are they just casting that aside, much like one of the most talented wide receivers ever played a game?
Yeah, I don't. It supposedly it was voluntary. I don't know if that means Randy is getting another job. Yeah, I used to like Chris Carter used to do. Come on, man! Before Randy did, You Got Moss. Yeah, it
so
gets
do you
old.
think they're going to create another similar type?
Nah, I hope not. You can't do it. What are you going to do with RG3? You got juked.
You got wrecked.
You got juked for one season before I ripped up my knee. Randy's a Hall of Famer. Yeah, I don't know. You lose some cachet, but I'm a little surprised because RG3, is in the Rip and Dan Snyder business. And as, we always say, if you're a partner with the owners, yeah. And ESPN is a little bit of a surprise to me. But maybe Randy just didn't want to do it. Who knows how? Maybe Amazon's got a bigger check. Who knows?
And
we'll probably hear something.
Didn't I just see that RG3 still thinks he can play?
Probably. Yeah. I mean, he was a hell of a player too as a rookie. People forget. And he was in the playoffs. He got hurt in the playoffs. Such a shame. Tore his ACL and his LCL. That was the Carson Wentz injury, and that was why I was concerned with Joe Burrow last year. That the Joe Burrow season coming off a torn ACL and an LCL, people are going to be talking about that for years. I mean, that has been a devastating injury for people prior to Joe Burrow, and he was able to come back right away and play at that level and get that team to the Super Bowl. That is an amazing, amazing feat.
No, I remember the guy we had on who said, beware Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I think that was Mike Tannenbaum.
Tannenbaum came on our show and said, I loved Burrow coming out of college, but you get those quarterbacks with those lower body injuries and they're just never the same again. he did throw that caution flag up there. Joe Burrow kind of spit in Mike Tannenbaum's face, said, "Oh, yeah, I'll show you about me bouncing back from this injury." You're right. He had a phenomenal season going to the Super Bowl last year with the Bengals. All right, Dan McMullen, good job today. We got one already in the bag for tomorrow. Mike Tanier going to join us tomorrow?
Mike's going to be on early, I believe, 8:20. So cool. Football Outsiders, little Mike Tanier talk.
So we had two homeboy Philly guys today, and Gill and Farzetta. We'll have a national guy tomorrow, probably a second guest. We need you guys here today. And who's the guy who always pimps me at 8 o'clock? Is Jordy Mac up yet? He'll be here tomorrow, I guarantee you, on the stream. Thanks to all you guys who streamed away at us today. John McMullen, Jody McDonald will be back in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.